you mentioned John Lord earlier, and
Yeah.
then you just mentioned Four Barrel. Uh,
Yeah.
so I have a quote here from John Lord
Oh,
of
yeah.
Clarknova, and he starts by saying, "Ask him about Four Barrel." So
Yes.
there we go. You talked about it. He says he was 18, I was 22, and man, we were really heavy. He actually had some F bombs in there that I took out. Uh,
Okay.
then I joined Clarknova, and when the first guitar player left, we needed a guy, and I said, Dano or no one else. And he delivered. After we were in Clark Nova, he just took off and made the best of every opportunity he could get his hands on and is one of the best in the business. He makes me proud. It's from John Lord, Clark
Uh,
Nova.
Good old Lordy. Yeah, he was a quintessential part for me joining the band because he was such a good buddy, and I've been in a band with him already. And we'd already been doing some pre-pro in the studio. So that's that whole Clark Nova thing. I don't even think I got asked to be in the band, dude. Honestly,
You
dude,
just were. Just one day it was.
like I think it was Zeke, the band's manager, like let's mention Zeke before, and manages time with Finger 11 now, and he was managing the band at that time. And They came in the studio one day, and he's like, "Looks like Scotty's out. You're in, right?" I'm like, Okay." I think it was in the middle of the session. He just opens the door, and he's like, "Yeah, so you're in Clark Nova now." So I'm like, "Okay, I guess so. Here we go." Right? Which was I would have. He didn't really even have to ask. I would have said yes immediately anyway, right?
A lot of times it's when a member leaves a band and they need to be replaced, it's usually someone that's tight within the crew, someone that's already worked with the band in some capacity. A lot of times it's the guitar tech, if it's a guitarist, or the drum tech. So for example, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, when Frusciante left, it was not the first time where Dave Navarro came in, but later on for some more recent albums, it was their guitar tech that came in. And then Stain, when their drummer left, their drum tech Sal came in, and it's like they already know him. He's you're if you're a guitar tech for a well-known band, you're usually a good guitarist yourself. You're there every night. It's already a part of your life. You know the songs inside and out. So that happens quite frequently.
It does. It happens really frequently. So that's, organically, that's why that happened. Working with back in the day, doing all that pre-production, I had done sound for them, like probably at that point, like 20 or 30 times already. So yeah, it was like a little shoe in. We were able to get to work right away and start rehearsing. Because they were at that time I joined the band, they were halfway through recording the follow-up record to host. They were doing Anexia, and that was getting produced and recorded by Jag Tana, My Mother Earth. So yeah, we were getting right into rehearsals, and managed to get on one song in the record. The intro track, "Exile at Home." It came out to a rehearsal one night. I had a couple of chord changes and a little bit of structure changes to it, and he really dug it. And he's like, "Let's make a studio date next week, man. Let's get that song done, right?" So that was cool because I didn't think I'd record anything on the record, right? It was just to actually be playing on one tune was great, and then it was more just about doing the follow up tour, which I was really excited about, going out with my buddies, and going on tour for a year.
So you went to school for audio engineering, you
Right.
got out, you did some work in the studio as well as some live stuff. Then
Yeah,
you built a studio in Newmarket, which is how Clark Nova came into the picture. Is that correct?
that is correct. Yeah, it was just Clarknova was a bit before because when I was working at Newmarket Multimedia, Mike Kerwin's studio, that's where they were doing a lot of their overdub recording. They were so we were producing the record. It was Brad Nelson down at Great Big Music producing the record. So I think they did drum tracks there and doing some vocal and guitar overdubs at Newmarket Multimedia. But then just naturally, I guess when we built that studio, which Mike and Zeke were a part of, they funded the whole thing. I just funded my time and that was my little part in it to get it built. But that's when the guys would come in because they were getting ready to do the second record when they were starting to write, and we started running pre-pro. So they come in, a night or two a week over like it was seemed like months now, half a year, just keep bringing new tunes and working on them and changing the arrangements and just having fun with it and and molding them to what they would eventually be on Anexia, which went through another whole process. Then when Jag got his hands on it, the song's totally changed again. there's multiple levels of those songs changing, right? But that was where everything kind of glued in with me and the Clarknova guys, because there was so many sessions, like all night. Wait, leave the studio at 5 a.m. Sun's coming up. Totally worth it, 100%.
So two of my best friends have been massive Clarknova fans and massive I Mother Earth fans from the very beginning. And one of them sent in a fan question. So
Okay.
this is from Eric Claremont. He says, how did getting Jag Tana to produce their album come about? And whose idea was it to have him guest star on one of the songs?
Yeah. He ripped an amazing solo on a song called Finn. Yeah. So a lot of people do know this, but Steve Koba, the singer for Clarknova, actually auditioned to be I'm Other singer when
Brian came in.
yeah. So it was actually down to Steve Koba and Brian, right? So Brian ended up getting the job, but Jag and Steve remained good buddies, and keeping in touch. Clarknova, just right at that time, that's when Clarknova released Host. It was right around that same time as I Mother Earth put out the record with Brian, first one. Yeah, and so when the second record came up, it was I think they went through a couple of guys doing a couple of demos after we were doing pre-production. Then they went to Jag, and he was really interested, and that's how it all came to be. Just that they were already buddies before, right? So.
How, man, can we take a moment to acknowledge how talented Jag is as a guitarist, his harmonies that he provides on stage, as a producer, as an audio engineer. He just has this vibe to him that like oozes talent in like all musical realms. Can we acknowledge him for a second?
Absolutely, yeah. He's definitely one of those guys with the full package, right? And they're kind of, you wouldn't think of it, they're few and far between on that level, right? And he's definitely one of those guys, man. He's a super tasty player. His tone's always ripping, it's good. It's like, I love when guitars are really distorted, but they sound clean. You know what I mean? It almost sounds like they're on a clean channel for a second, and that's just him that's playing. He's got great hands, great fingers, and great ear. And it's just led into, stuff for recording and producing it as well, right? Got a great ear for that, for tones and where things should be placed in a mix, and textures, and harmonies for backups, and melodies for lead singers. Yeah, he's definitely a total package.
When you decided that you were going to pursue music full time, was there any resistance from family or friends? A lot of times when we're young, we're told, get that good education, get that solid job. Music, that's a hobby, that that's a pipe dream of having a career in the music industry. Did you have that resistance, and if so, how did you kind of break through that?
Yeah, mildly. Like from my mom and then some people surrounding and stuff, right? Because when you're a kid, obviously, if they're not a musician themselves, they just don't understand. And just when I was, getting into that like workforce age, 15, 16 years old, I've already been playing for like 4 years, and just like, no, like I'm gonna do something in around this, and that's, I think, when I first started looking at other things to do, if that wasn't to, work at just being, guitar player in a band, or whatever. Yeah, I got a little bit of resistance, but it was heavily met. Like the brick wall kind of just went up because I wouldn't have it. So I had to do other things to make ends meet, of course, right? But there was always that focus, and never kind of waned. It's like, I'm going to do something, whether it be guitar player in a band, or a recording engineer, producer, writer, or live sound guy, right? One thing I said, and I didn't ever say I was going to be a TM, right? But here I am, right? So, but yeah, the focus was always there. Yeah.
Was there a moment where your family kind of came around and kind of realized like, oh, he's going to be just fine doing this in the music industry? A lot of bands I talk to, it's like their family and friends didn't take them seriously until they got like a Juno nomination or a Grammy nomination, or there was like a moment that is undeniable where it's like the rest of the world has acknowledged that their child is legit and has talent.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's probably two parts of it. I guess it's one of the younger part, where I've just been doing it for so long. So like early early 20s, already like a decade in of playing and doing that whole cycle of things and gigging and starting to get into recording and live sound and that. It's like there was that portion, but it was actually probably when I really started touring with the more known bands, right? Instead of just working for a production company and being like an operations manager or system tech, right? So when I started going out with like the Platinum Blonde guys and then into April Wine, right? And that's only just been in the last decade, right? So, finally some people and stuff and siblings like, oh wow, like okay, Dan's actually really doing this. It's 20 years later, they knew it was a struggle, right? Like it was always a struggle. So and I had to do some other things to make my lifestyle work and my ends meet and support my family and that. But it was always, either gig on the weekend or a session. And then I was starting to, get there when I started working with the production company and full time work there. But then, full time just with bands, strictly is when, I think everybody went, okay, he's full out doing this for real, right? So
I always looked at the resistance from family as, we fear what we don't understand.
yeah,
And,
exactly.
our parents, even when we're adults, they still see a part of us as like that kid in diapers, right? And it's like their job is to protect you. And if they're not musicians or if they don't understand the music industry, they they want you to do what you love, but they don't want you to suffer in poverty and these different things. So I always see it as usually coming from a loving place. It's just more of a misunderstanding and a fear, if that makes sense.
Exactly it. It's just misunderstanding. It's just like you said. It's like if you're not in it and know that from a musician side and just whatever fires in your brain at the early ages and all those connections that are made that make you know what being a musician is. If you've never experienced that, there's no way you're going to relate to the passion and that the dream that somebody has to want to do that. It's just impossible, right? So and that's the thing. It's a hard industry, and there's a lot of struggle, and there's a lot of sacrifice, and they see you going through that, and trying to be supportive, but they want to also say "I told you so" kind of thing, right? But it is from a loving place, and so that's appreciated. But that's why it's so hard because you just gotta focus right through and just have the noise just be that, and off to the side, and keep that focus on what you're doing.
I've heard it called the evil gene. Those of us that like are obsessed with music, and it's, you know, we couldn't be doing anything else. We wouldn't be happy, despite maybe how hard it is to make a living. It's there's just no other choice because you could get a job, here in Ottawa, everybody works for the government and they get paid well and they get benefits and they retire early and pension, all this stuff. But it's like, even with that safety net there, and you'd still be miserable because the music, that evil gene, that music is in you, and it's you gotta follow that through.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once you grab it, it's almost like it's an outside force. It's not like you're even deciding to do it anymore. It's like kind of, I feel like it just comes from within you. And if you don't do it, yeah, it can leave you being kind of miserable. Like, I go times where it's just, obviously do a tour break and just do normal stuff or whatever, and just hang out and do the stuff I need to do around the house or go away with the family and that. But like, yeah, it's like basically within a couple of weeks, if I'm not doing something like playing guitar or write a tune or doing a gig or out the road doing a little run or a tour or whatever, it does change my perception a little bit and just my comfort level just within my own skin. So I have to keep doing it. It's like I said, it's above and beyond me. It's just a force that just makes me do it, or yeah, and just don't feel normal, right?
With Clarknova, was there a favorite part of you being in that band, or maybe a fondest memory of that period of time?
Well, just I guess it's that tour that followed up and released the record. Record came in like August, and then that tour, we toured Canada with a band called Showcore. They were at
Nice.
the time great guys. We had a blast. We were partying pretty good and 27 years old, so we were giving it pretty good. So it was just a really fun time. It's just like first uh, real tour, I guess. Going right across Canada in a school bus with a bunch of my buddies, right? So very memorable time, like seeing the country for the first time myself, for myself. seeing, playing gigs nightly. Just I'm like, okay, we're doing this, right? It's just that raise up and like, okay, it's all happening, it's all happening, it's all happening, right? So it was a really good time. Um, yeah, and just and more so, just after that tour into the new year, it's we hit the road with I'm Mother Earth a lot. Did some smaller like 2 week runs, and then just some a bunch of one offs on weekends or a couple of double ups, and that was a lot of fun because they were really well attended shows, and opening for a band of that level on a constant basis, it's just a lot of fun. So that year and a half, um, it's hard to say one particular thing or one moment in that time. It's just that whole chunk of time. It was a lot of fun going and do that, and it really taught me the rigors and the rules of the road, and what that all entails as well, right? Which kind of was the start prep for me getting into touring with bands as a sound guy, right?
So Clarknova releases a new single called Shut Up and Live in 2020. So this is after like a lengthy hiatus. How does a new song come to be in 2020? And is that a one-off, or can the Clarknova fans get excited that there's a possibility of some new music in the future?
Yeah, we were obviously not doing much in 2020, so there was some writing happening, and all the guys we all talk quite a bit, so I was doing some writing, and I had a structure of a tune. It was basically just like a little intro verse and a chord frame for a chorus, right? And just the way that I layered the guitars on it and stuff, I'm like, this sounds like a Clark Nova tune, right? Which is funny because I wasn't a big part of the writing team at all, right? I just do pre-production and just a little bit of stuff on the second record on that one tune. So it was neat that it kind of this Clark Nova-ish tune came out to me that showed the guys, and they were like, definitely sounds like a Clark Nova tune. So we all kind of started collaborating from home. Steve started writing lyrics and melody. I was putting more guitars and stuff on at home. Everybody was listening to the tune. And right at that time, when we were trading that song around, a very dear friend of mine, Blair Hall, he had moved home from the States. He'd been down in the States for quite a long time, lived in LA for a while, and then he was in Ohio for quite a bit. And then, yeah, he ended up being in Chicago for quite a while. And then he ended up moving home. This is a guy that I went to recording school with. So he set up his studio at his house. He was living down the street, right? And so it's like, hey, bud, if you want to start on some projects, how about we start with maybe Clark Nova guys can come in and maybe we can slang the song together. And he obviously agreed. And then we just started putting the tune together. We had Lordy up, did the drums, and did some guitar. We had Shecky up, did the bass. It was all starting to come together. Greg came up, added some awesome layers on there. I ripped a solo on it after. Steve came up, did all the vocal, and it was just like, there it is, right? We thought it was just gonna be a little fun project, right? But it ended up turning out to be a really cool tune. It sounded great. Like Blair did an amazing job on it. It sounds great. So it's like, hey, why don't we just put this out as a Clark Nova tune just for people that are still hanging around, just on our Facebook or whatever, just something kind of new for them. It was just fun, right? And it actually got some radio spins and stuff, right? It was just fun, right? It was just it was a nice uplifting time for all of us. I think we all needed it.
It was like cathartic after, during the pandemic to do something positive, release something creative.
Absolutely, because I was right in the thick of it. That was like basically May. It was May, June. We were recording that, right? So, that was definitely needed at that time. We were writing some other stuff in that too, right? So it was definitely that summer was filled with, being creative and getting that song done and out near the end of the summer just to put it out. We weren't looking to get back on the circuit or anything or go on a world tour when the pandemic was over or anything. We just wanted to put a tune out. It's just for fun, just for the process. The process, I think for all of us, it's the most, it's our favorite part. It's just so much fun, so exciting, right?
You already mentioned that the song sounds great. I was going to say the same thing. When you have a good pair of studio headphones and you crank that song, it sounds incredible. So credit is due to Blair and the crew, everyone that worked for the audio side, the recording, the mixing, the producing, mastering, all that stuff. And you also mentioned there's a guitar solo. So this is a badass guitar solo, and you're actually playing that solo.
Yeah.
Can you give the guitar players that are listening, can you give an insight into how you achieve kind of that big signature sound? Maybe
Not bad.
guitar, pedal, amp. Is there anything there? Some secret sauce?
Yeah, actually, might have to ask Blair because actually that recording that was all actually all plugins, and I think we were using I think the STL Labs, or I actually gotta let him. I gotta talk to him and see what we were actually using on that. But we went through a bunch of stuff, and that's the cool thing nowadays, just having those plugins, and they're starting to just sound incredible. And a lot of guys are getting like signature model plugins. There's a John Petrucci, a Mesa Boogie model, and this and that, right? All these guitar players have their signature things. So, just keep trying stuff out and blending it. That one, it's pretty high gain, but that one I wanted to have a little more screech to it. So I ended up using a Telecaster. It's actually my metal like Telecaster. It's the Charvel there with the Fishman Fluence pickups in it, roasted maple neck, and it's got a nice thin profile. So in 24 fret, so it's made to burn, right? So it's definitely had the right sound for that little solo. So that was a really fun solo to come up. I haven't actually written and recorded a lead for a dog's age. I can't even remember when, maybe 15 or so years or anything. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun doing that and laying it down, and it's a cool part of the tune. All my guitar buddies just like, nice ripping solo, bud, right? So it's cool, like not being an active, overly active guitar player, or not a pro guitar player on the circuit anymore. It's nice to get your buddies like Ian Thorne to go, man, that solo's ripping. I was like, geez, like, thanks, dude.
That's
Like,
some high praise. Yeah.
yeah, it's just crazy. I don't know if he was just fibbing me to make me feel better, but
I'll
I'll take
take it either way. Yeah, yeah.
it. But yeah, it's
It felt good to unleash the beast with that guitar solo. Yeah.
huge. Yeah, for sure. I do it constantly. Like, there's not many days that when I'm home that go by that I don't pick up the guitar for an hour and just go through some stuff to keep the fingers limber and keep the calluses going, or try something new, right, here and there. So yeah, it's definitely a big part of my life, and I love going for a rip, man. It's it's one of my favorite things to do.